Welcome to Raw History. This is where we cut through romanticization and speculation to show you the unfiltered reality of human history. The invisible battlefront. Why winter was the Cold War's silent killer. When historians discuss the Cold War, the focus gravitates toward nuclear arsenals, espionage networks, and ideological confrontations. Yet one of the conflict's deadliest battlegrounds received far less attention: the sub-zero temperatures, where soldiers fought not just enemies but the environment itself. In the fall of 1950, American soldiers and their commanding officers were unprepared for their first Korean winter, when temperatures could plunge to more than 30 degrees below zero, and Arctic winds from Siberia yielded deadly consequences. A Life magazine article from February 1951 reported that more than 5,000 US troops in Korea suffered from frostbite that first winter. The Battle of Chosin Reservoir in November 1950 demonstrated winter's lethal capacity. On the 14th of November 1950, a cold front from Siberia descended over the Chosin Reservoir, and the temperature plunged, according to estimates, to as low as minus 36 degrees Fahrenheit. The cold weather created considerable danger of frostbite casualties and was accompanied by frozen ground, icy roads, and weapon malfunctions. Medical supplies froze. Morphine syrettes had to be defrosted in a medic's mouth. Before they could be injected, blood plasma was frozen and useless on the battlefield. The 1st Marine Division reported 7,338 non-battle casualties due to the cold weather, adding up to a total of 17,833 casualties. For every Marine killed by a Chinese bullet or grenade, almost 2 were taken out by the cold. Innovation under pressure. The early gear failures and lessons learned. The winter of 1950 started in the middle of November, several weeks ahead of forecasts. American troops found themselves without the proper gear to guard against the intense Siberian cold. Some made do wrapping towels around their heads to protect their ears, and doubling or tripling the layers of clothing they wore. Even with the extra protection, soldiers lost fingers, toes, and ears while sitting on frozen outposts as they waited for the cold weather gear to be supplied from the south. The Second World War-era shoe packs that many troops wore in Korea, well, they proved to be quite inadequate. Troops really disliked the rubber shoe packs, since they made the feet sweat and, honestly, increased the risk of frostbite when trying to change socks. Frostbite actually caused more casualties among US troops than enemy fire. This catastrophic failure, in the end, forced immediate innovation. The M1951 cold wet uniform, from base layers right through to the outer garments, replaced the World War II-era M1943 to become standard issue for American soldiers during the Korean War. The disaster at Chosin Reservoir, really accelerated the development of revolutionary cold weather equipment. When you get cold, your body enters survival mode. It pulls warm, oxygenated blood from your extremities to protect your heart, lungs, and brain. This keeps you alive, sure, but it turns your hands into useless claws. Fine motor skills, such as the ability to manipulate a trigger, clear a jam, or tie your boots, are the first things to vanish. Military planners soon realized that keeping soldiers operational in extreme cold required more than just adding layers. It demanded scientifically engineered protection systems. Beyond the Parker unsung heroes of personal survival, the most significant Cold War-era innovation was probably the extreme cold vapor barrier boot, which most folks know as Mickey Mouse boots. Introduced in the early 1950s, the Type 1 extreme cold vapor barrier boots really represented a major advancement in cold weather footwear. These large, bulbous, waterproof rubber boots can be worn in extremely cold weather, anywhere from -20 to -60 degrees Fahrenheit. The liner-free interior keeps the warmth in by sandwiching up to about 1 inch of wool, and felt insulation between 2 vacuum-tight layers of rubber. Made of 2 layers of seamless rubber with wool insulation in between, Mickey Mouse boots prevent heat from escaping the boot, while also stopping cold air and moisture from getting through the exterior rubber layer. The design, well, it incorporated lessons learned at terrible cost. Considering the sufferings of soldiers during the Battle of Chosin Reservoir in Korea, which led to many cases of frostbite, even with the Type 1 boots, the Type 2 was developed to address the worst-case scenario, meaning the need to field soldiers in the coldest conditions any military force could reasonably attempt to operate in, including places like Alaska, Siberia, and both Arctic poles. The white version, known as bunny boots, could handle temperatures as low as -65 degrees Fahrenheit for operations in the Arctic and Antarctic regions. The boots featured some practical innovations, including an air valve on each boot. These air valves must be opened before flying to make sure that the air pressure differential between the walls of the boot and the outside air doesn't cause the boots to rupture. The M1951 uniform system, really revolutionized cold weather clothing through layering principles. The combination cold-wet and cold-dry clothing system could actually be configured into 2 ensembles. The cold-wet ensemble is worn above 14 degrees Fahrenheit, and the cold-dry ensemble is worn below 14 degrees. The cold-dry ensemble impressively protects down to -60 degrees Fahrenheit. This modular approach allowed soldiers to adapt their protection levels based on activity and temperature, which helped prevent that dangerous combination of exertion-induced sweating and subsequent freezing that, sadly, killed so many at Chosin. Strategic advantage in the snow, operational gear that honestly changed the game. Beyond just personal protection, Cold War winter operations really demanded specialized equipment adaptations. The troops tested the gunpowder and found that the extreme cold, which was, approaching 32 degrees below zero, had changed the propellant properties. Weapons needed different lubricants, or sometimes no lubrication at all, to function in such extreme cold. The water-cooled Browning M1917 machine guns, for example, required antifreeze to keep the water in the cooling jacket from freezing and bursting the jacket. Communication equipment faced similar challenges. Batteries lost capacity rapidly in cold conditions, requiring soldiers to keep spare batteries warm against their bodies. Radio operators developed techniques for maintaining equipment functionality that became standard Cold War doctrine. Vehicle operations demanded specialized antifreeze, synthetic lubricants, and preheating systems to ensure mobility when temperatures plunged below operational ranges for standard equipment. Legacy of the Cold War winter warrior echoes in modern military gear. The innovations born from Korean War disasters became foundational for modern cold weather doctrine. Synthetic insulation such as Primaloft and Thinsulate was first developed as a lightweight, effective military option. These days, sleeping bags, gloves and coats for civilians are frequently made from these fabrics. The military's emphasis on layered, modular clothing systems, such as base, mid and outer layers, has made them the industry standard for cold weather attire. The vapor barrier technology pioneered in Mickey Mouse boots influenced civilian outdoor equipment design for decades. Modern winter boots, sleeping bags, and expedition gear incorporate principles developed to keep soldiers alive at Chosin Reservoir. The lessons learned about moisture management, insulation layering, and extremity protection now benefit mountaineers, polar researchers, and everyday winter commuters. The Cold War's forgotten winter warriors didn't just survive the cold, they revolutionized how humans protect themselves from it. Subscribe to Raw History for evidence-based explorations of forgotten military innovations that shaped modern technology. Share your thoughts on Cold War winter gear in the comments below.